A Kid in King Arthur's Court is a Disney film from 1995. This is directed by Michael Gottlieb. It's written by Michael Part and Robert L. Levy. And we have a cast including Thomas Ian Nicholas as Calvin. We also have Joss Ackland as King Arthur and Kate Winslet as Princess Sarah. We also have Daniel Craig. Really solid cast. And the narrative is not to my personal taste, but there's nothing wrong with it. And actually the pacing particularly, well, I would have liked a little bit more setting up because it gets to the point really quickly. It's about a teenage boy in the present day, or present day at the time, who is playing baseball and then finds himself, the ground opens up and he finds himself in Camelot. And it is the time of King Arthur and Merlin, and he has to try and help save Camelot, and also things that are happening with Princess Sarah. And I don't want to say too much about the narrative, but it's certainly very creative, but the pacing of the narrative itself is very effective. And generally, I love films that get to the point immediately. But this one was maybe a little too immediate. I would have liked maybe even just another 5 minutes of getting to know Calvin in his time, in his present day, before we entered this other realm. And aside from that, everything else went really well. And the characters seem all... Calvin's a very likeable protagonist. The other characters are all very well written. They're very likeable. The antagonists are very well written characters. I don't know how historically accurate it is, but certainly it has a strong magical feel to it, and it has a kind of strong fantasy fairy tale feel to it, which is quite nice and works very well. It's not necessarily to my personal taste. I'm not that bothered about tales of the time of King Arthur and Camelot. It's not something to which I gravitate. But that being said, there's nothing about it that I can fault really, apart from maybe wanting a little bit, just a tiny bit more setting up at the beginning, because it felt very, very sudden. We didn't really get a chance to know Calvin properly in his time before he entered Camelot. But other than that, I think the narrative is handled very well. Definitely feels quite magical. It looks great as well. As I said, don't know how historically accurate some of the costumes are. They might all be. I have no idea. But they look really great, visually very appealing. A decent narrative, just not completely to my personal tastes. Do I recommend it? Yes, if this sounds like your kind of film, if you're looking for something that's a little bit different, something that's quite magical, and with some great performances and characters, then A Kid in King Arthur's Court might be one that's worth checking out. Oh, and I did forget to mention that it is apparently loosely based on Twain's A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, which I haven't read. I feel like I maybe should. But then again, not that bothered about King Arthur's Court, so maybe not. Either way, A Kid in King Arthur's Court is, all things considered, not a bad film.